lane reversals happened on a Tuesday.
Right, Brendan, that's been the big criticism, is why this had to happen so early. Well, it has to do with what the state mandates a timeline is for an evacuation, because an evacuation of our coast takes between 36 and 48 hours. It has to be done 6 hours before we feel any of the impact of a system like this. And what that means is these first responders that you see blocking the ramps and closing down the interstate have to be out of here, off the job, 6 hours before we feel any of the impacts of the storm. Now let's talk about the evacuation. These lanes on I-26 are all reverse westbound, and they will be indefinitely. And we know this morning that traffic was about 3 times more than what it normally is heading west. So opening these lanes really helped relieve some of the traffic heading out of town. But as you can see, it's pretty quiet. It's pretty empty out here for us to be looking at a mandatory evacuation to start at about 11:30, 12 o'clock today. So there's a chance that we could see increased volume heading out of town. But there's something else I want to talk to you about. A lot of people have said they're not planning on leaving out of town, and I talked to the Highway Patrol about that today, and their advice is if you are planning to stay, please use the secondary roads, because this interstate situation is a little bit confusing because not all the exits are open. You can't hop on and hop off, particularly in this lane that's reversed. The first lane, when you get on at 526 and you head out of town, the first place you can get off is Ridgeville. Now, if you're in the true westbound lane, the lane that's always west, then you can get off in a few places, including 199 in Somerville. One final note I want to leave you with. The only problem that we've really heard about today is that there are some people who are in the true westbound lanes that once it gets a little more busy, they're crossing into the reverse lanes. And the Highway Patrol says, do not do that. That is illegal. The key word to remember, tuck it, don't tie it, okay? And here's why. When you've got your bag, this is obviously not a sandbag, but I wanted to use this to demonstrate. You leave it untied so that you can get all the sand nice and flat, and then you tuck it under. Listen, the weight of your sandbag is gonna hold it in. It's gonna hold that flap down, and it'll keep the sand from going out. That's what you do. Think of it like you're laying bricks, okay? So you take each of your sandbags, and what you do is you lay them parallel to your door, tight as you can, and then once you have the first layer down and it's flat, then you start with the second layer, and you do it about a half step off, and that way the sand will fill in any places where there are gaps. Good evening, Brendan. A little bit of wind right now, but no rain. But before the flooding gets here, I want to warn you that that water can be contaminated with human waste, pet waste, who knows what else. It can also contain snakes that bite. And so I want to mention this to you before you let your children out to play in it or your pets drink it. Keep in mind, it's basically like a toilet bowl. So far, it seems like people have prepared way in advance. You can see behind me where the shutters are closed, boats are out of the marina, but for the most part, you can just see that people are enjoying the day, taking in the sights. One of the things that we have noticed that's changed out here, and Rob mentioned it, is the white caps on the water out here. We did not see that throughout the day. I got out here about 10 o'clock this morning, and that was not the case since we've been here. That's only developed here in about the last 30 minutes or so. Unfortunately, it's just been a very slow day in the city of Charleston, and with the evacuation order just being lifted today, you can see there's still a lot of places with their sandbags out. They're still boarded up here, but then right next door where we are on the Market Street, Henry's is open, and they say they have a limited menu, but they're asking patrons to come in because the folks that work down here are ready to get back to work.